Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to be going over some of the techniques I use to create generative music. In this video, I'm going to be using a bunch of different Max for Live devices, which I'll include a link to down below. To start out, you'll need something that will be seeding the MIDI notes. There are many ways to do this, ranging from using a MIDI clip to a Max for Live device to an external piece of gear. For this demo, I'm going to be using the Norn script Loom. Loom is described as a pattern weaving sequencer for grids. It's an interesting sequencer and really shines when used with the Norn's grid. On the x-axis, you see triggers, and on the y-axis, you pick which notes will play. When the triggers intersect with the notes, MIDI data is sent to Ableton. In Loom, we can set the overall BPM with encoder 2. We can change the scale. And we can also seed random triggers with encoder 3. So if I start seeding some random triggers and notes, you'll see that in Ableton I am getting MIDI data in. For this demo, I'm going to be mainly using one of the piano presets from Omnisphere. So you can hear we're getting notes in now. So one of the first things I like to do is cap the velocity. I'm going to cap it at around 49. And I'm going to set the note length to about 3 seconds so it doesn't cut off as abruptly. The next thing I want to do is add a bass accompaniment. So you can hear it's just playing the same thing as the main sequence. So first thing I want to do is set the pitch down 2 octaves so it's not playing the exact same thing. And I'm also going to cap the velocity and the note length to around 3 seconds. Another thing I want to do is not have the bass trigger every time a MIDI note comes in from the main sequence. So I'm going to use this arpeggiator as a sort of makeshift clock divider. I have the rate set to once per bar. And now this is nice that it's not triggering every time that the main sequence is, but because it's only once per bar, there's a good chance we're going to see a lot of repeats. So to get around that, I'm going to add the scale MIDI effect and set it to major pentatonic. And I'm also going to insert a random effect. And I have it set to about a 40% chance to be random. And in the sign box down here, I'm setting it to sub, which means that all of the random notes will be below the incoming MIDI note. So now that I have the main sequence and the bass, I want to start adding some chords. So I'll turn on Omnisphere, cap the velocity, set the note length, and I'm going to add this scale plugin to make sure everything's in key. It's on D major. And now I'm going to add this chord device. The first shift is going to be down an octave, the second shift will be up a major third, the third shift will be up a fifth and an octave, and the fourth shift will be down to the major seventh. And that sounds cool, but it's kind of robotic because it's just like kind of hammering away. So I'm going to add an arpeggiator, and I have it set to thumb up and a rate of 1/8 and the gate at 200%. And I'm going to add another note length to make sure that these kind of really hang there. Now that I have the main components laid out, I want to add some variation. On the chords track, I'm going to add the pitch effect. I'm putting it behind the chord effect, so all of the degrees of the chord will change accordingly. I have the pitch going up a fifth. And that's cool, but I don't necessarily want that the whole time. So I'm going to use this Max for Live device called Survey to sequence this. Survey is a step sequencer that you can use to modulate different parameters. Up here are the different steps. You can have up to 32 steps. I'm only using 4 right now. And this channels button can change the number of parameters that you can control with this. So I'm just going to reset this. So if I want to map something to Survey, I just hit this map button and I click on the parameter that I want to map with it. So if you look at the pitch device now, you can see it's changing. So for all of the steps except the last 2, I want it to be at 0, and then the last 2 I'm going to have it up 7 semitones, so up a 5th. So now if I want this to run, you press this active button, and I'm setting the rate to 1 bar. Now if I start seeding some MIDI notes, you'll hear that it's changing every bar. So just to add a little bit more variation, I want to have all of the notes of the chord transposed up an octave on the last step. So I'm going to add another pitch shifter. I'm going to map to that. And on the last step, it will be going up 12 semitones. So now if I seed some MIDI notes, you'll be able to hear that. I'm liking how this is all sounding, but I think on the main sequence I can make it a little bit more interesting by adding another scale plugin and another random plugin. This time I'm going to set the scale to 2, which means that it'll pick from notes that are 2 octaves, and I'm setting the sign to bi, so it'll be 2 octaves up and 2 octaves below. So now if I seed some MIDI notes, you'll be able to hear what that sounds like. I'm also going to add this plugin, which is Chance Play from the Chance 10 MIDI pack. So now this is going to only allow 60% of the notes to come through on this track. Another thing I want to add is a MIDI note echo. This is another stock effect, and I have them set to quarter notes. And now if I take an LFO and I map to the pitch shift over here, and I set the wave to random, it'll randomly modulate the pitch over here. Now that I have all of these tracks, I can also use them to drive other tracks. So I'm using the Blisco violin, and I have this getting information from the chords track. So if I seed some MIDI notes, you'll hear what that sounds like. I also have an Omnisphere pad here. And I have a pretty simple bass patch that I made in Operator, which is getting MIDI from the bass track. You can also use these tracks to send MIDI to external MIDI devices. So I have this MIDI track sending to the Electron Digitone. You can hear that over here. Like I said at the beginning, there are a lot of ways that you can send MIDI to drive these tracks. I personally just like Loom because it's really playable, and I feel like that kind of adds a bit of a push and pull between you and the machine, and I really like that. I first came up with a lot of these methods by trying to translate Eurorack concepts into my DAW workflow. I've done a lot of experimentation in this realm, and like I said, there's really no one way to do it. The techniques I laid out here today are what makes the most sense to me. I like that it feels like I'm jamming with my DAW as opposed to just programming a bunch of parameters and letting it run wild. If you want to hear these methods in action, check out my tracks Misty Shores and Long Rest. Thanks for watching. If you have any requests, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you next time.